Hello, everyone, and welcome to MindshareTV. I'm your host, Robert Margolacci of the Mindshare Learning Report, where we explore the ideas and innovators shaping the future of learning and education. Today's topic, from classroom to CEO, Dr. Peter Balyta on coaching the next generation. Uh, Today, I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Peter Balyta, former president of the global education technology business at Texas Instruments, and now the founder and CEO of Coaching Instruments, a company focused on executive coaching, leadership development, and helping professionals navigate career transitions. Peter, welcome to Mindshare TV, and thank you for joining me this afternoon.
Thanks, Robert. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely a pleasure. And to me, you fit in the legendary category from the classroom to leading a massive organization and hugely successful Texas Instruments. It wasn't a very direct path, no doubt, but was that something you always had on your to do list to check off when you became a teacher? I will be the president of Texas Instruments one day.
I, absolutely not, Robert. It is the furthest thing from my mind. And so, yeah, my career path was certainly not a linear one. I actually don't believe linear career paths exist anymore. And I'm happy to talk more about what my path looked like, but
Right.
no, it wasn't linear.
Absolutely. Well, an incredible journey you've had from being a math teacher to leading Texas Instruments. What inspired you to start the next chapter with coaching instruments?
Well, first when I decided to graduate from Texas Instruments, some people call it early retirement, but late last year, yes, I was excited to create Coaching Instruments, which is an organization really dedicated to equipping my clients with the courage, confidence, and tools to achieve wild success, right, without sacrificing their personal values. And I guess, when you ask what inspired me, I guess you can say that I am a teacher, I'm a coach, I'm a leader, and you mentioned, former business president at Texas Instruments. But really, over the 45 years of, executive experience after leaving the classroom and the school board, I I got to understand the challenges that CEOs face. And more importantly, having gone from classroom teaching to global leadership, I learned what it takes to navigate things like resource constraints, competition, self-doubt, starting out in an entry-level role at Texas Instruments, going on to become the president of TI EdTech, but all while making an impact in an area that I've always been passionate about, education. So so I get it. It can be pretty scary, but I wanted to share these coaching instruments so that my clients can achieve success without sacrificing their personal values. And for educators, um, especially and only the educators that have made a decision to leave the classroom. So I want to be very clear. I am not about getting great teachers out of the classroom. I've been supporting quality education for all for years, and I'm continuing to do that. But for those incredible individuals that, for whatever reason, have made a decision to leave, I want to help them land their dream job and or secure side gigs that could provide them with the supplemental income that they're looking for.
Fascinating, and you're just not focused on education either. And I understand we were talking off air that you're preparing for a triathlon this weekend, so you also train athletes. Now, I could use some of your training, perhaps. My sport is hockey, and listen, I still have the dream. I think the Leafs could really use me, Peter. So whatever you can do is appreciated.
Well, Robert, I'm happy to help. Unfortunately, the game happened last night, and the good old Montreal Canadiens won. I think, or I know, it was such a great game. Sorry, so sorry for all of my
Yeah.
Leaf
Well,
fans out there.
full disclosure, you are from Montreal. I'm honored to be part of your board at the McGill Faculty of Education, where you're chair and did your PhD there. So I know you're not gonna. I'm not gonna convert you to a Leaf fan anytime soon.
Sorry.
Well, I have your website up, and this kind of gives a perspective on some of the areas of expertise you're focusing on.
Yes, absolutely. And you mentioned, Robert, like kind of different areas, and let's face it, many professionals, whether they're in business or in education, right, they have well-intentioned goals, big ambitions, but often the only strategy is to work harder, and they end up sacrificing their personal values for unsustainable results. So at Coaching Instruments, we want to equip these professionals with that courage, the confidence, and tools to enable transformation and achieve long-term success. So my coaching business, as you've got up there on the website, has really 5 practices. And I know today we'll focus on, the classroom to boardroom one, but the first one is executive coaching. And that is for ambitious CEOs and executives of small to mid-sized businesses, think 7 to 9 figure revenue. Those who want to lead with clarity, build high performance teams, drive sustainable business results, and achieve wild success without sacrificing personal fulfillment. The other one that you see right next to it is leadership development. And that one's really for high performing professionals, mid level managers, and aspiring leaders who want to confidently step into leadership roles. They want to build high performance teams and accelerate their career growth, knowing it's not linear, right? And they want to do that without losing sight of personal fulfillment and impact. Now, the third one is classroom to boardroom. That's career transition coaching, and that is specifically for teachers and education leaders who want to transition into successful careers in business, nonprofits, or consultancy roles. And again, without sacrificing their values, their purpose, or professional identity. And then the fourth, you called it triathlon and endurance coaching. And in this practice, we coach busy professionals like you, Robert, who dream of completing major endurance events like maybe marathons or Ironman events, Escape from Alcatraz. There's just a ton of endurance events out there. And then the fifth one, it's not listed here as one of the verticals, but it's consulting, right? So we also offer consulting for business leaders seeking assistance with strategic planning, performance improvement. Often it's change management, or sometimes, specifics in product development, marketing, sales, or things like that. So those are the 5 practices.
Thank you for that. Why leadership coaching matters now? We're living in a time of massive change, AI, workforce shifts, and new expectations for leaders. Why is coaching becoming such an essential part of leadership today? I know so many leaders who have coaches guiding them today. So you're very much on point. You're on trend. Kudos to your pivot that you made as part of your graduation. I love that notion. I was asked last Friday night at dinner from one of my wife's husband's friends from high school, when are you retiring? I said, for all intents and purposes, I've been retired the last 25 years because I'm doing what I love to do. So it doesn't feel like I'm working.
That's right.
Like this conversation. So over to you.
Yeah, well, that is a big question, Robert, and really, like you, I just absolutely love my experience at Texas Instruments. I was there for almost 26 years. Had so many opportunities to grow in different directions, live in other parts of the world, and work with just the most incredible people to help teachers around the world give students a solid foundation in math, science, and STEM education. It was my dream job. All right. But I'll tell you, as I stepped into the president role about 12 years ago, one of the things I absolutely loved about my job prior to that was coaching and mentoring others. And so I had like leaders in different markets around the world. I'd coach them on a regular basis. But once I became president, I had to work with my leadership team and let them do the coaching and mentoring of the teams in the other markets. I worked with them closely. I had the very best leadership team, but it was a small group. So I missed that. And so what I did, kind of a side gig, is I would take on some executive coaching contracts with some individuals, totally non-competing, nothing to do with TI, to scratch that itch. I just loved it. And so that kind of was, it was clear to me that once I graduated, that I would go back into doing the part of the job I absolutely love,
Right.
which was helping coach and helping individuals grow in their careers and deal with challenges. So interesting. I love the question. I didn't really think about it until you asked, but yeah,
Thank you for that. Supporting educators in career transitions. I know of many who have successfully transitioned. It's not easy for all. One of your programs focuses on helping educators move from the classroom to the boardroom. Why do you believe teachers have such a strong potential as business leaders?
Yeah, great question. And often I guess why I chose to broaden my business practice to include a focus on educators, because I was working with executives, I was leadership development, but then I would have some educators come and talk with me, and they would say, Peter, I've been teaching, or I've been working at the school board for the last 20 years. I don't have any skills outside of education. That's all I could do. And that would just blow my mind, right? Because they have so many marketable skills, but they just haven't thought about them that way. If I think of anyone coming out of a business school, if you tell them they're going to go stand in front of a group of 30 people and make a presentation, they freak out. Now they're going to hide it, but they're so nervous that some of them feel like they're going to pass out. Teachers do that every day, 5, 6 times a day. Dealing with difficult conversations, negotiating. Did you ever try to convince a child why algebra is important? That's a serious negotiation there. So, and project management, everything that they need to manage, before class, during class, after class, HR. I mean, I can just go through all of the core functions of the business, all of the support functions, and directly translate how educators could like knock it out of the park in those roles. They just need help doing so.
Right. The transferable or skills are many, and as I alluded to, I know many who have successfully made that pivot and have never looked back. But let's look at some lessons from the corporate world. You spent 25 years in executive roles in a Fortune 500 or 200 company. What are some of the most important leadership lessons you've learned that you can share with your coaching clients? And I think I'm going to wish a book upon you on this topic. How does that sound?
That sounds great. That sounds great, Robert. And yeah, the biggest lessons for me are around, people. So I think I learned very early on in my career that, the old analogy, there is no I in team, there isn't. And who you surround yourself with is so important. So you need to help your leadership team or your team that you're leading, grow to be the highest performing team they can be. And the opposite side of that coin is if you've got some I would call them bad apples, you need to cut that infection before it spreads. And I know that sounds kind of mean, but who you have on the bus matters. And so when you ask about, most important lesson, for me, that is it. When you have, I once, asked my boss for permission to reduce my team from 10 to 6. All right. And I promised that we can deliver better results. So she's like, you're asking me for
Wow.
less and you want to deliver more? Yes. And that was 12 years ago. And you know what? We did. So I would rather have a smaller team any day that I
Well
trust
said.
completely. Yeah, absolutely.
Let's look at balancing performance and well-being. Your work, your work also integrates personal performance and even endurance sports like triathlons. How does physical discipline and mindset translate into stronger leadership? I know on this topic, it can be a doctoral thesis because I know many leaders who have a sports background, and there's definitely that character and leadership a component that is ingrained in the athletes, especially high performance athletes like you. And I like to put myself in that category. Back in the day, I still play hockey 3 times a week.
Yeah, Robert, and absolutely, I definitely put you in that category. Your attention to fitness and well-being is exactly what we need more people to be doing. But to answer your question as to like what do I see and why are people doing that? Well, there is the obvious health and fitness, including mental health component to these types of endurance events. But in terms of the business leaders, right, the executives, the ones that I work with that decide, hey, they want to do something that they didn't ever think they could do, or they might not even think it's doable, but they want to do it. They just don't have the time. They're traveling too much. The family, the C-suite, or the board of directors is pulling them. They just can't find the time, and so that's where I come in. I come in with my team of coaches, and we work with them to not just achieve their targets, but exceed them. And so I think what's in common, Robert, is doing hard things.
Hmm.
As a business leader, you're going to be setting goals, setting targets, putting scorecards in place, and simply meeting expectations. That's not enough anymore. That's just expected. That's just the standard. That gets you to the table. It's all about exceeding expectations. And that is doing hard things. So I think they often see like doing an Ironman as something incredibly difficult. It's going to challenge them. They're going to learn and they're going to grow. And so that's the similarity I see in, chasing quarterly results versus chasing that finish line in an ultra or Ironman
Right.
or marathon.
Yeah, well said. And so I'm chasing that marathon finish line later this year. Is my dream. Is I've got a big birthday coming up, and I've committed to that. But my you know, play hockey 3 times a week, I know that it's a process. And I might lean on you for some advice on that along the way, and other friends who are, marathoners. But you, just like tackling any massive challenge you have in your organization, you need to do your homework.
Absolutely. And you need the discipline, right? Like just wishing for something, what is it? Manifesting something. None of that works unless you put in the hard work. You're disciplined about it. You take a structured approach to it. So if you want to do a marathon or an ultra endurance event and you're not thinking about the discipline that's required to do that, including recovery like sleep, but your nutrition, your hydration, your electrolytes, it's not going to go really well, right? It's the same thing in business. If you're just chasing the revenue and you're not taking care of delivering value to your customers, supporting your customers, making sure that the board is pleased with performance, you got to address all of these things to be successful. So there's a lot that goes into getting to the start line. That is a victory in itself because you have to avoid getting sick, you have to avoid getting injured so you can get to that start line. And then that's where the fun starts. That's when
Absolutely.
all of your hard work pays off. And that is the whole event for me is always a celebration. And
Very
so
cool. You
it's
you
incredible.
need to celebrate those moments. It's so vital. And I would add that, it's about execution, right? So you have, a goal, and this is where you come in with your inspiration and strategic support. That there are many people that have a vision of where they want to go and are just stuck. I manifested this workspace for a couple of years, and I had a pitch deck, and that's how I manifested. But I executed. I executed on. We had this Mindshare Workspace pod that I had a slide with this image, and we just built it out. We planned for it, and it happened. So execution. I do I execute on everything? My book is just finishing up. It's taken me longer than I wanted to. But talk to me about the importance of really setting realistic goals for yourself, because a lot of people are so many people would say, I thought about this idea that you have that you built a long time ago, but they
Yeah.
never executed.
Yeah.
You hear that
Well,
over and over.
I do. And that was really an impetus to why I created this business, right? Like,
Mhm.
and I'm calling it coaching instruments. If you think about it, like medical doctors use instruments
Right.
to improve health, right? Doctors use it to improve health. Well, coaching instruments uses tailored tools and frameworks to maximize business, leadership, and fitness potential. Those are the areas. And so
I
we
love the branding, by the way. You're on point with the branding. Well done.
Yeah, but kind of like you had this vision, and then you made it happen. When I work with folks, whether it's like executives, or maybe like early career professionals or educators, right? We start with kind of what you just said, the big vision. What is your purpose? You know, less than 98%. I've had one person that did have their purpose defined, but they don't even if you ask what is your purpose, they haven't had a chance to think about it. So we work on that. We work on, what is your unique value proposition. We work on, value filters. So you and I, we get, job offers every now and then. It's tempting to go, oh, that's really interesting, let me call them up and learn. But first, pause, run it against your value filters. Is that a good fit for you?
Right.
Too many people will fall trap to that, and then 2 to 3 years later, they're miserable. Why? Because they didn't run it through their value filters. It wasn't aligned with their main objectives personally and professionally. So we work on that. We talk about the importance of your network. I call it the power base. AI is not going to do that for you, right? You can use AI to make this resume and send it to like 10,000. That's just a waste of time, right? Your network is, and I'll quote this from someone else, your network is your net worth. That is true for everyone. And even if you're not looking for a job, and you need to feed your network. It's not just about taking
Right.
things out. You need to give back to your network. It's so important. And many people don't think of that. So these are just some examples of what we work on.
Thank you for that. And you pay forward in many ways as chair of the faculty of education at McGill University. I know you're very involved with at the higher level as well in fundraising and paying forward and giving back. It's something that I've done my entire career. In fact, I volunteered in my role that I became full time in for a whole year before I got the job as sport information director at York University back in my previous two careers of being a sport administrator.
That is brilliant, Robert. And I want to follow up on that. First, thank you for being on the faculty advisory board. I really appreciate you dedicating your time to helping advance McGill
Pleasure.
University Faculty of
It's been a
Education.
great partnership.
Oh, it's thank you. There's a lot of things you can do. You choose to spend your time there. I appreciate that. Now, you talked about you spent time volunteering before you stepped into a role. It sounds like your dream job. When I work with teachers, administrators, or education leaders, that is often something I recommend that they do. Is like, hey, if you want to check out this, it could be a for-profit business, but it could be nonprofits. As you know, many nonprofits have education as a vertical in that nonprofit, right? Health and human services, education. So I encourage them to volunteer. Learn, and it's not just giving back, yes, but you're also learning about how the organization works, who the people are, and most importantly, in this context, do you see yourself in that organization? Or maybe you're learning, and then you might do another nonprofit and learn from what you learned. So there's just so much value in volunteering. One, you're giving back to incredible organizations, and two, you are learning and you're building your network. I mean, I can go on and on with the benefits of
Well said.
volunteering.
I think that's almost a separate podcast we
Yeah,
can
yeah,
do
I agree.
on another occasion. Looking ahead, uh, about 5 years, what impact do you hope coaching instruments will have on the next generation of leaders, both in business and education, Peter?
Yeah, well, I guess first and foremost, what I want to do is everyone I work with, I want to help them live their best lives, right? That's at the highest level. That's what it's all about. And so, if I think that 5 years out, I'll have a thriving practice, helping individuals in all of the verticals I described. Have some executives. Honestly, that's going to be the smaller amount because that's one-on-one with me. Leadership development. I've got some courses. They're asynchronous courses that people can take, and then group coaching. That for me is the biggest thing. I would love to see many different groups in my group coaching. I think that's where the magic happens. Those exchanges. That's where we all learn, share, and grow together. So I'm big supporter of group coaching. Um, and
Amazing.
then yes, I want educators to realize that, hey, when you get a bachelor's of education, yes, you can be a classroom teacher. And that is so important. I mean, I think teachers in classrooms, they are the true life superheroes today. But for those folks that, for whatever reason, don't want to be a classroom teacher, there's so much they can do still in education, right? Or outside of education. And so, for me, it would be a big win if I were able to have an impact on, thousands of people so that they can see that there's so much that they can do with their education background. If you think about it, Robert, there's a lot of talk these days about AI, right? I'm a big supporter that, hey, I love AI. It's a great tool, but HI, human intelligence, coming together with AI, that's where the real value will take place. And I can't think of anyone better in HI than educators, right? Not because they know how to teach kids. Absolutely, that's important. Not because they know how to teach certain subjects to different individuals. That's also important. But because they know how to teach people how to learn. And with the speed of how things are changing in the world today, that is huge in education, but also in corporate, in business, right? And teachers, that's what they do. So yeah, I need them to understand just how powerful of an impact that they can have.
Well said, and it's part of the theme of my book is around being human at the age of AI. So we're very much on point. Peter Balyta, Dr. Peter Balyta, thank you for sharing your journey and insights. It's inspiring to see how you're continuing to support leaders in education in new ways. For those watching, we'll share links so you can learn more about coaching instruments and the work that Peter is doing. Thank you for joining Mindshare TV. I'm your host, Robert Mardlacci. Until next time, stay healthy, stay safe, and keep the learning curve steep.